So today we'll be discussing the theories of Karl Marx, and specifically we'll be talking about historical materialism and technological. It includes elements of technological determinism as well. So let's begin. Karl Marx developed a materialist account of history that treats technology as a core driver within economic life, and through it a shaper of social organization and culture. In this view, tools, techniques, and productive capacities are not neutral. They interact with labor and resources to configure how societies are built and how they change over time. Historical materialism: at the base are the forces of production, tools, machinery, human labor, and skill, and the raw inputs needed for making things, which set the practical limits and possibilities of economic life. These material capacities condition the relations of production, patterns of ownership, control, and class position that in turn support a broader superstructure of laws, political forms, cultural norms, and dominant ideas. So, basically, there are three things here. One is the forces of production, then there's relations of production, and then class structure, the broader superstructure. So forces of production are basically inputs of production, what is required to actually make things. These things set the practical limits and possibilities of the economy. So the limit of economy is set by the capacity of raw materials essentially, and the technology available at the time. So if a new technology develops, let's say, that is very much more efficient and expensive as well, then the ownership would change as more funding is required. As more funding is required, more people will be there, more decision makers would be present, and their decisions would change as well. So that's how ownership would change based on how technology progresses. And if a large number of such technological changes happen, then it's possible that political views, cultural ideas, and what's actually present in what actually happens in the regular life also changes, and the laws change accordingly as well. For example, with the emergence of AI, the copyright laws are changing. Some parts of Europe have, for example, permitted people to have a copyright of their own, let's say, photos of their own body and stuff. When productive technologies advance, they can unsettle existing economic arrangements, pushing societies from one mode of production to another. A classic illustration is the leap from artisanal workshops to factory systems, which help consolidate capitalist social relations and later fueled movement envisioning post-capitalist alternatives. So this illustration is basically the movement from handmade goods to mass-produced factory goods, which were cheaper. Key illustrations: industrial transformation. The spirit of mechanized production and steam power reorganized labor around factories, concentrating capital and accelerating markets. This shift helped crystallize a divide between capital-owning classes and wage laborers, with conflicts over working time conditions and the distribution of gains becoming central political questions. So if the structure of a society changes from let's say agricultural based to industrial based, then obviously the political questions would be different, the needs of people would become different, and hence the government requirements would be different, and that's how political system also incorporates such changes, although with a lag, but they do incorporate such changes. For example, textile mills in the 19th century Britain used power looms and centralized energy to outpace cottage industries, drawing rural population into urban factory work and normalizing wage labor as the dominant relation of production. So the relation of production changed due to this technology, and that's the example. Technology's promise and alienation. Marx treats technology ambivalently. On one side, expanding productive powers can magnify human creativity, reduce drudgery, and open space for new kinds of work. On the other side, within capitalist relation, the same machinery can de-skill, fragment, and control labor, separating workers from the process and product of their activity, and workers are eventually seen as just factors of production. For example, on an assembly line, specialized machines can raise output while narrowing tasks to repetitive motions, making workers interchangeable and estranged from the design, purpose, and outcomes of what they produce. A contemporary echo appears in algorithmically scheduled warehouse work, where scanners and dashboard direct pace and motion minute by minute. Why this all matters now? Marx's framework resists simplistic technological determinism by showing that devices and techniques never act alone. Their social efforts depend on property, relations, power, and class struggle. So this term technological determinism has been explained in a video already uploaded on the channel. You can see that after this. So this approach clarifies why the same tool can liberate or constrain depending on who owns and governs it. Technological development both shapes and is shaped by currently existing economic structures and social relations. It remains influential in critical theory and labor studies, informing current debates about artificial intelligence, robotics, and platform work, where questions of ownership, surveillance, and distribution of productivity gains echo older conflicts. For example, in AI assisted software development, code generation tools can either augment worker autonomy by offloading boilerplate or intensify control by tracking keystrokes, setting stricter metrics, and appropriating the creative surplus depending on workplace governance and rights. Some additional examples could be taken, like let's say the mechanization of farming, tractors and other machinery used. They raised yields and freed labor, but also consolidated land under larger owners. The small holders of land were sort of displaced, and as the market is competitive, the large owners of land were benefited, and thus rural class structures changed as a result of it. Another example that we can take is the printing press. The onset of the advancements of printing press enabled mass literacy and new political policies, altering the superstructure by transforming law, religion, and state legitimacy. After this, broadcast media came into picture, where visual charisma was preferred by people, obviously, while the internet fragmented it but introduced new forms of platform control.